We do 2 a year here. We do February and October, but there are a few other ones in Leatherhead and roundabout. So, you know, 2 at Tunbridge. That's the thing. I didn't organise the first ones. They were up in London at the Gandhi Hall near the Post Office Tower in the 70s, and the guy who ran it unfortunately got ill and he couldn't, you know, have them anymore, and then it sort of lapsed for several years. And in the early 90s, I thought, well, it's worth a go, and we started at Southborough, which is a very small hall, with about 15 stalls to start with. Overall, we're looking at about 700-ish. We've had a few more sometimes. It covers all different sort of sections. You've got traders, you've got guys who are thinning out collections, you've got people who are just selling gear to make more room, and that's why it works, quite honestly. So, I think it's like any enthusiast thing, isn't it? If you're into old cars, into antiques or anything, you will go to fairs and you'll enjoy them. And I think this is this is the 18th year and it's been successful. It's grown every year. I mean, when we first came in here, we probably had 50 stalls. Now we're close on 150, so it's grown. The thing is, it cuts all through every sort of strata, and we all come from different backgrounds, but we have a love of what we're doing, you know, and that's the main thing, isn't it? We've had some very interesting models here, including the Nakamichi 1000 gold-plated. We had one of those one year, but that's the joy of it. You never know what you're going to see, and for me, the kick of it is you might see something you've never seen. You've seen pictures of it in a magazine, but you never actually see it in the flesh. This is not only selling and buying, but it's a social thing, isn't it? And it's meeting people, and it's nostalgia as well. I like vintage hi-fi. I'm also into vintage radios. I'm a member of BVWS, you know, British Vintage Wireless Society. For my input, mid-50s to mid-60s is the sort of the golden period, yes. After that, there was still valve stuff, but it sort of was going transistors. I've got Voight horns, Voight corner horns, 3-watt amplifiers that I make myself, and SME deck, and I'm trying to think of the name of them, Lector CD player. So it's a very modern and old system, really. You can still get the very expensive gear today, but I think what's sad about it is that you've got the built-in obsolescence with chips, microprocessors, and a lot of the parts you can't get, you know, where with the valve gear, it can be 50 years old, you can still get the valve. So it was built, and then, you know, it lasted an awful long time.
Well, I still have a pair of BC1s that are very hot stuff today, yeah. And although some areas of speakers have improved, I'm not sure that they're more musical. Well, I think if you look around this show, you'll see that an awful lot of people here got into hi-fi back in the 60s and 70s, maybe the 80s. They couldn't afford it in those days, but now they can afford to buy the stuff second-hand that they couldn't afford then. Well, I think it's the same people who go to classic car shows. I mean, I can see the appeal of classic cars in the same way because they're easy to fix. You can fix a valve amplifier if you know what you're doing, whereas you can't fix a DVD player. I mean, the same applies to a modern car. There's always been a tendency to jump on the latest technology a little too abruptly. I was very impressed at an Oracle turntable for 250 quid. I thought that was a good deal. I mean, that's one thing about second-hand hi-fi, it's bloody good value. I used not to have my Sundays free, but I do now. I buy quite a lot of vinyl at these shows, yeah. That's another attraction. Several people doing vinyl. John Howes has become a friend over the years, partly because of his interest in old stuff and mine. I mean, a mutual interest. Well, he's got the Voights, hasn't he? He's got a load of them, the big horn speakers. And I borrowed his pair when he went to Australia earlier this year, and I wrote them up because I thought a 1935 speaker that good ought to be publicised. We sell a few issues. I don't say that we're making a fortune, but it's quite nice to show your face. And we have regular people who come round and get the latest issue cheap. Well, I think it might be the future of audio shows in some ways. I think they're great fun, and it compresses it into a short time span. Lots of interesting people roll up. I meet lots of new friends. No, I mean, I enjoy them. And they only take half a day, whereas formal hi-fi shows take 2 or 3 days.
The NAG-bit stands for New Ash Green Hi-Fi Club, although we are no longer really based in New Ash Green, we're based in northwest Kent. We've been running for sort of just under 40 years now. We'll be celebrating our 40th anniversary very shortly. The idea of the club is basically to get together, socialise, but in addition to that, to go round to each other's houses and listen to different equipment and listen also, hopefully, to different music, and thus be inspired to buy stuff that they wouldn't normally buy or listen to. Our club encompasses all types. We have people that will listen solely to vinyl, other people that listen to vinyl and CD, other people that spend a lot of time listening to MP3 files and high quality downloads. So you know, we cover the whole spectrum. As a group, we do a lot of things like we actually manufacture our own cables. We do a lot of listening within the club, in that we will spend you know, evenings just listening to mains cables, would you believe it, and basically voting on which ones do the business. The reason we started to come to the Audiojumble was that John Howes is a member of the club. He's one of our sort of regular members. He's very interested in the club, and we like to come along and support him. It's great for us because we can get rid of any excess products that we may have, cables, etc. In addition to that, we can use it as a recruiting vehicle for new members. And in fact, since we've been doing the jumbles here, we've had several new members come along as a result of seeing us here. If we had a proper head count, I would say we're sort of 30, 40 different members. I think the appeal for a lot of people is, of course, vintage stuff. First of all, it's got a charisma from the past, but it also allows people to put systems together which are very reasonably priced and are of a quality that they would not necessarily get if they went out and spent the same amount of money and bought new. I think that the way forward is for all of us to get sort of younger people involved in it. I have two sons myself, are in their early 20s. They're absolutely fascinated by music, and they're fascinated by the equipment that I have in the house, and they're always asking me about, you know, have I set up such and such a turntable, what the latest speakers that I'm using, how do they differ from the previous ones, and then I play them the system and they're enthralled. And I think young people, if they get the opportunity to listen to a good system, will understand exactly what it's all about. I think the problem is that in this day and age, money is extremely tight for young people. They could come here, they could buy perhaps a classic valve amplifier, some classic speakers from the past, maybe a classic turntable like a Garrard or something like that, and put together what would be an extremely good system for a lot less than they would if they bought new products. Having said that, a lot of our members have systems that are based around new products that they've gone out and bought themselves, but also they've got classic items in their system. And you know, you can, with a little bit of jiggery pokery, get classic items to work very, very well with new items. So it's like a mix and match, if you like.
Well, I'm Barry Jones. I've been interested in tape recorders since the age of about 16. I've always liked Brunels, and it got to the stage where the SDT, which I wanted, was no longer available, and I had the choice between a Ferrograph and a Sony. But I've always liked Brunels, and I eventually started collecting them, and from that I then wrote the history of the company, as I've done on others, like the Panther motorcycle. You know. But I've also collected True Voxes. I've written their history and Thermodynamic products, and they literally, the company went right back to paper disc to digital recording, based on the brush recorders of the 1940s. The tape recorder market until the early 50s was either professional machines or kit built. Thermodynamic products licensed the Brush 411 in the UK. They're the first British assembled tape recorder, but it's arguable which was the first British designed and built tape recorder. The beauty about British decks is they use standard components, so a British deck is almost invariably fully restorable. With Japanese components, it's getting very, very much more difficult now to get spare parts. You know, heads is a major problem. Cassettes, they're just anonymous, but all the reel-to-reel manufacturers have got a design which looks completely different. And in fact, you've got big reels, especially on the professional 10.5-inch machines. There's an allure there because you're getting into professional realms. I think it's the fact you see two big wheels whirling round. The sound quality from an open reel is far superior to cassette, and is arguably far warmer than with digital recording. Digital is quite synthesised, and I'm no expert on music, but I find that digital recordings are painful to listen to all day long. But an analogue, through an old amplifier, you can listen to that all day long without any fear or distortion or discomfort, and that to me is what hi-fi is about. Well, a lot of companies are going back to analogue now because they prefer the warmth and the versatility you get from analogue. It's a superb show, this Tunbridge one. It's an absolutely superb show. Over there, there's one of the very first Revoxes, the TT26, which that's the first one to bear the Revox name.
The Sapphire was the inquest for Arthur to not only establish a turntable high-end with funk, but also to kind of surpass the ghost of Pink Triangle. Every time a product comes along at any given price point, and you think, oh, whew, that stands out, And if I'm lucky enough, we get to deal with those products. We're distributors in Poland and the UK currently with Lector and Viva, and hopefully Funk. The thing with an Audiojumble, I think certainly for me, is you might find something that you lost it after 15, 20 years ago. I mean, just today, I've managed to pick up a system deck at a very good value, an Arcam amplifier that was going very cheaply. And I've never been here and not actually bought something, even if we've had stands. You've got all your different types. You've got those that obsess about the science and they want all the technology of the equipment and why something works the way it does. And then you've got people, perhaps, a bit more like me, how does it actually sound? So a lot of people think it's going to be quite anorak, geeky kind of day out with people playing about with wires. And whilst you've got a little bit of that, generally, as I'm sure when you've walked around, it's unbelievable. And even if there isn't an interest, there might be something, a record, and I think that's what makes it perhaps the most exciting event of the year. We want it to grow and grow, really, and we'll always be here.
Yeah, very good show.